where we've been for the first 15 minutes. Here we are, ready to talk. Baseball had a chance to come back in a very meaningful way. And to what you said, Pete, it does remind me of 2001. In fact, I went to the first game at Busch Stadium following that disruption in the season, and it was pretty special. You know, I remember sitting there, and I had cheap seats. I was in the bleachers, but Jack Buck gave that great speech before, almost like he wrote poetry, but it was great. And one of the questions he led off with, the question is, should we be here? He said the answer is yes, based on what he was seeing, looking around the ballpark and all the fans. It was pretty cool. While this is different, they sure had a chance to make a splash. Even if there weren't fans in the stands, my God, how many people would have been watching on TV at the same time? Like, sky high ratings, would have set frickin' records. The first major U.S. sport back in action. And now they can, if they don't get it to work in some way, shape, or form, good luck catching up with the NBA. And then you'll see the NHL on your heels too, because it sounds like they all have plans in place to come back. Now, I'm not going to make the mistake of comparing what situation they're in. I mean, both the NBA and the NHL had 80-90% of their season done. Most of those players had made their money. I realize it's a different situation. The threat here is that other sports come back and you couldn't. And the casual fan's not going to do the research. The headline barkers are not going to do the research. They're not going to know, and they're going to label this as greedy player or greedy owner, and that's it. And you're going to lose some of them. And so have fun with that. And some of those people won't come back. Some of the people have never come back from 94, Pete.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're right.
You're going to lose a lot of young fans, and you're going to lose a lot of new fans too, because they haven't invested all this time into their team. They've just come on board, and now they're like, well, screw this. I'll go watch the NBA, or I'm going to go watch the NHL since they've got their act together, and they're going to be on. I mean, they're going to be the first sports on, and baseball's going to shoot themselves in the foot.
And what I find what I find it rude about this, I mean, obviously it's about money, but all professional sports leagues are about money, but what it seems to me is that really at root, the genesis of the Players Association with baseball was so different from every other professional sport. And so it was acrimonious at its inception, and it hasn't evolved past that. I mean, you look at every professional sports league has had some kind of labor action at some point, right? Every league has gone through a strike. Every league has gone through some kind of interruption of their season because they couldn't agree on a contract. But once it got settled, that stuff went away. That stuff goes away. It never goes away with baseball. It's always there. It's underlying it. The owners are always trying to screw the players. They're always bitching about the owners. You never get any long stretch of time where you're allowed to just worry about the game because it's always there. They're always talking about it. And the baseball media doesn't help because they're always writing about it. You're never allowed a break from it.
It was reported that we had a little bit of an echo on the feed. Sorry, guys. I think I fixed that. Once again, though, we're going to go ahead and blame this one on Elliott, too, even though it may not have been his fault. He logged in late and forced me to scramble. I'm going to pass off all the blame on you. Hopefully that echo's gone. So we're up on Facebook. I'm kind of monitoring the Facebook feed here, just taking a look at it, and I saw Holy Echo Batman by Sam Smith. So Elliott Dewey, Echo Master. Yes, I had.
That's right. Always.
Guys, somebody tell me, broadcast interrupted, just me? No, that's just you, Yaki. So we're certainly not interrupted, but guys, somebody let me know out there if Elliott's echo's gone. I'm going to let him talk for a minute straight. Pete, let's not interrupt him. Let's just let him talk and let him see if he can keep himself afloat for 1 minute here. Go.
Well, I tell you guys what, with everything that's kind of gone on, and I was really hoping that the owners and the players would kind of get something together just for the benefit of the fans, because everybody is kind of just chomping at the bit for something else besides turning on a news channel or getting the update for their state or their local area for COVID, or worrying about if they can go to work that day if they've got to go to work and help board up their place or clean up their place or do whatever they need to do. That's really hasn't been fun. And sports is fun. And we've been missing a lot of that lately, being either locked in our home or, a direct from work, direct to home. Did I bring my mask with me? Can I stop by the store on the way home? If I did or didn't, constantly washing my hands, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Social, everything, culmination of everything. I mean, everybody's stress level is just probably at the maximum right now. And any kind of fun from sports to take our, to just kind of bring us down a little bit and put a smile on the face. And it's disappointing that baseball seems that they don't want to really be that sport that's going to take us there.
Wow. You went over 2 minutes there. I'm impressed. But so there evidently the internet's having a tantrum tonight. It says our CJ was very technical in his response, saying our FPS is bad. That would be frames per second. It might be the laptop I'm streaming from. I'm not sure. It's certainly not top of the line, but it's pretty good. I'm through talking about baseball. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I don't mean to sound like an ass, but at this point right now, I'm saying to baseball, look, I'm down to there's probably about a 20% chance that they actually get a season in. And I think there's a 0% chance that all players are going to want to come back. I think there's going to be a handful that, look, let me give you an example. Not that this player would do this or not. I'm just saying as an example, you look at somebody like a Garrett Cole who's on the first year of a massive contract. What incentive is it for him to come back for 40 or 50 games and only get paid for that? I know it's a lot of money, guys. Don't get me wrong, but he's got, 9 years after this, 8 years after this? Sitting out a year for him.
Pregnant wife at home.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you got Mike Trout. You could put him in the same boat. Bryce Harper's on the early end of a deal. So, imagine Chris Bryant, fuck you guys. I'm not going to play this year. And hello free agency, that much sooner, I guess. But, I can definitely see a handful of players. Some of it will be for the reasons of health and concern. Maybe they have somebody at home with an underlying condition. They just don't want to risk bringing anything back to them. So I get that too. But I more think about players that look at this and go, shit, this doesn't feel worth it. And I think that could very well happen. I hope not, but I think that it's a possibility. Video doesn't match the audio. Okay. Well, you know what, guys?
We'll just chalk this one up as
for you dinos.
What it is
for you dinos, then why don't you jump on over to YouTube, search us by name, go to Periscope, search us by name, get a Twitter account. It's free. Twitter's a fun place. If you think Facebook gets bad sometimes, you haven't seen shit yet. Just jump over to Twitter if you haven't been there. Jump over to one of those platforms. Hell, maybe it's coming through better. I don't know, but so I'm done with baseball unless you guys got something else to talk about, because I don't want to, and I'm tired of the polls, the yes or no polls. I'm tired of the who's your top 5 shit on MLB Network Radio. You guys have seen some of the images I've taken, right?
Yeah. You've seen my screenshots from MLB's, pinging my phone. It's like, I don't care.
Right. Who's every team's ace? What's a legitimate ace? Like, oh my God, I just want to drive my new car over into a bridge embankment.
You think about it, right? Major League Baseball has been forced to take over our lane because those are the conversations we have. That's not the conversation that Major League Baseball is supposed to be having. Major League Baseball is supposed to be having the conversation of the Cubs are 5 games up in the Central, product of them being good or a soft early schedule. That's what we're supposed to be talking. Those are the alerts we're supposed to be getting from MLB. We're the idiots who are supposed to be asking, who are the Cubs and Cardinals aces?
Which we never do.
But that's our lane. Get the fuck out of our lane, MLB.
And you know what, Pete?
Do your job.
Yeah, Pete, and you know what? They suck at it. They do. I mean, they suck at it. I'm not kidding. So it's boring. We've said it on here a billion times, right? I'm Yeah, our video is very, very choppy. It's very it's hard to watch. I can understand, guys. Sorry. Hopefully they can at least hear the sound, or you can just download the audio tomorrow.
No, you know what? Switch over to YouTube. It looks beautiful over there.
Does it? Go to YouTube.
Yeah, go to YouTube. Looks great. I'm the only one watching right now.
Yeah. Okay, so we got yeah. I tell you, man, there's just creatures of habit on Facebook. If you're a Facebookie, you're a Facebookie, and you don't really venture out too far. Sam Smith is on the Twitter on Periscope, though. I saw him on there, so the feed is better. So it's Facebook again. You know what? Maybe I got to pay him a few bucks just to get a better upload, I guess, into Facebook. Maybe we got to pay him for that too. I'm not going to.
It's that prioritization that they do, where I know,
not really,
unless you pay the big money, you're not going to get that T1 line. You're going to get that 56K.
Oh, dial up.
Yeah,
that's actually shit, man. That would have been a great idea. A sound to put in at the beginning of the intro music would just be an AOL dial-up tone that you got.
You've got mail.
No, not even that one. Just the baud rate coming through. Maybe I'll add that. Just for the Facebook feed though. Fuckers. Okay. So I don't want to talk about this anymore. We're already what time is it? We're
1:25.
Yeah. So we're edging towards the back half of the show here. In the back half of the show, it seems that we've not done this by plan, but we've kind of ventured off into something else that we actually enjoy watching. So I want to talk a bit about the short series, and I think it was only 5 episodes in total, of The Mandalorian's The Gallery, or Star Wars The Gallery, and it happened to cover Mandalorian for the first 5 episodes. I've been able to watch them all. Very cool. I mean, this is like what you would get on like a Blu-ray extras or something like that, but they put it out there as its own series rather than kind of tying it to the show itself. So hopefully there's more of this to come from the Star Wars channel there on Disney Plus, and they would do the gallery for some of the other things that they're producing, whether it be Clone Wars, Rebels, or anything else. Actually be kind of cool. Now, the first episode was covering the directors and the talent they pulled in, and while all that was interesting, because you've got a man, you want to talk about diversity amongst directors and creators, race, and that actually is pretty cool. And all of them are Star Wars fans, and all of them brought something a little bit different to the table, including Dave Filoni, who directed, I think, the first 1 or 2 episodes. It's actually it's an interesting crew, and when you've got one creative force and voice behind the production of it, the storyline, you almost didn't notice. There's different people in the director chair for certain episodes, and it wasn't that noticeable. Maybe Filoni's were because he was a little bit newer to it, but boy, when you have one creative force and a continuity on the creative side of things, it almost really doesn't matter. The handoff was pretty smooth, I think, from director to director. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, and I think part of the reason for that, Ron, is because, and you saw this throughout, but especially in that first one, they were all on set throughout the shoot.
Yeah.
So even though, Bryce Dallas Howard was shooting the episode, the other directors were there. They were seeing what was going on, and so they were able to feed on that and learn from it and maintain that continuity. You definitely felt there were different. There was definitely a different feel to each episode based on each director and also the story and everything. But I think having each of them on set watching the work being done, and they were clear in that very first episode that Favreau went into it wanting to create that. He didn't want to have a bunch of hired guns. He wanted to have a creative team that would work together, even though only one person would be in the director's chair for each episode.
Yeah, and the other continuity that you kind of saw with each episode is that both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were there for the entire time. Obviously Jon Favreau is the showrunner, but then you've got Dave Filoni, who's kind of on his hip pocket, learning about live action through this entire experience, because this is his first live action, like full movie TV show, and he was learning on the job.
Yeah,
and yet he was the on-set historian. He was.
Yeah.
Look, if George Lucas is Yoda, if George Lucas is the Yoda for Star Wars, Dave Filoni's Baby Yoda, man. And you can't go wrong by having that force ability on set, informing every step, every decision that you make.
Yeah. It's funny because you look at just the run Filoni's had with how he ended off Rebels, which is still one of the best things I've seen from Star Wars collectively, to introducing and hitting us with Mandalorian. And then you look at it and go, God, guys, fucking brilliant run. He's got a bright future in this. And then Dave Filoni himself goes, yeah, we'll hold my beer. And then he ends Clone Wars. What a run this guy's had, right? So, but yeah, just seeing how what the creative force was like and the collaboration, I think, between all of the directors and those two guys was pretty interesting, and it just makes you wonder, right? Like, where in the fuck was that with the sequel movies back to back to back? Who was in that chair that Filoni and Favreau are in during the run of episodes 7, 8, and 9, right? Who is it? You guys know?
Kathleen Kennedy.
Exactly. So, it's
Speaking of which, I have never been less impressed with her than I was today. I binged the entire gallery today. I got all 5 of them in.
the least insight from the round table was from her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at her career, just wonder, my God, based on what I saw today, she has backed into one hell of a career because she doesn't seem to know shit. She was working in local television in San Diego, and she was hired as Steven Spielberg's assistant, his typist, on 1941. And that's how she ended up destroying Star Wars. Thanks a lot, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot, San Diego. Fucking place.
Fucking whale's vagina.
Whoa!
San Diego, that's German. It's a whale's vagina.
I did not know that. You people are all smarter now for listening to the show tonight. That's a first. Yeah, so, the episode in this gallery that just really kind of blew me away was the episode called The Volume, right? And I didn't know what that meant at first. I'm like, well, is this the volume of footage they had? They had so much that they could make this brilliant, like supercuts or whatever. I had no idea that they were filming in front of actual video screens, like almost a 360 LED projection with a ceiling that was projecting. The only thing that was real was what was on the floor. You think about it, and I think Carl Weathers stated this, what was unique about it is everybody's looking at the same thing and not trying to interpret it in 4 or 5 different ways, depending on who's on set, right? Because if you're in front of a lot of green screen like I am right now, I'm in front of green screen. Pretty cool. I'm going to go get a video board now. But when they're on set in front of blue screen or green screen, they're all trying to imagine what the director's telling them and looking at it and reacting to it. Whereas in this situation, they're actually looking at something they can all see together, and it's the same thing. There aren't 4 different interpretations of it. And I thought that was an interesting take by him. But still, I don't know how they move. When they move the camera, it's synced to the video board, and it moves along with the camera. And to me, it's fucking mind blowing. I don't know how they do it. Conceptually, I still have a hard time really getting my head around how they make all that stuff work. But you cannot tell the difference on screen when you're watching it. I had no idea that a lot of those things were. I assumed that most of it was green screen, blue screen. And they had a little bit of that in there, right? That they filled in, like the what's the ship called? The Razor Crest. There's certain parts of the Razor Crest that were green screened off that they added in, but most of what you saw in the backgrounds was an actual LED screen behind them that they were filming in front of. So that to me, I went back and watched that twice. I didn't even know that kind of shit existed.
Yeah, so the kind of the technology that's behind that with the camera moving is almost like the 3D video stuff where you have the goggles on, and when you look around, that moves the camera. Mm-hmm. So that camera is synced to that screen. So when that camera is moving, it's as if you're looking at that different angle of the background, because if you just have a static background, it's gonna look funky. So your background actually has to move with the camera so that you're getting the angle. Mm-hmm. So they had to do a ton of pre-production shooting to make that work.
Yeah, and wasn't it like a lot of this was built off gaming engine, right?
Yeah, Unreal Engine 4.
It's incredible to me. Even when I was in programming computer science, which I did for less than a year, one, there were no women in that program. And when I saw the first guy got excited that he programmed his own graphic calculator, I said, "This is it. I'm done." But there were young people in there that got the concept of 3D and how that stuff worked. And I always wondered, like, okay, a game like Doom, how do they do that where you can pan around 360, look up and down? Like, how are those environments made in a program? And I could never get my head around that shit. So I was not cut out for that kind of stuff. I'm very linear, and it wasn't for me at all. So I joined the College of Business. That's the one I've seen the most women walking, building I've seen the most women walking in and out of. So it was a better fit for me, although nothing worked. It was an extreme failure. I
don't know, Ron. Things seem to have worked out fine for you.
They did work out fine, but it was a long road. But anyway, yeah, that episode to me, just that kind of technology, just kind of, you look and you see, okay, that's nothing proprietary about it. I think a lot of people have talked about it, experimented, maybe used parts of it here and there for certain things. But you got to wonder going forward, like, it's very expensive to do that now, right? Because they're the first to do it. That no doubt cost millions of dollars to build that thing and get it to work.
Actually, the impression I got from watching that is that it isn't really all that expensive. One of the things they talked about is that this is something that they'll be able to move, and that these directors, but also anybody else, will be able to take and integrate into their own films.
And he also said that
easily, because it's just LED screens.
Yeah, and they said that it reduces the amount of post-production on the CG side, which saves them a ton of money, because you've got to pay guys to create that background based off of those green and blue screens. So all they're really doing post-production, and now I've never made a movie, so I'm not going to say this is an easy thing to do, but
we make one every week, Elliott. Right here.
Yeah, they're digitally editing out like the little poles, or if there's like some pulleys or something like that, or having a boom mic in the middle of your camera.
Is that a boom mic or a big black?
Yes.
My wife was the only. She started laughing at a picture, and it was just of us on her screen capture. She's laughing her ass off at it, and I'm like, yeah, it was kind of funny. Elliott, of course, we start the show, and he wasn't at his desk, and she's like, that's not what I'm laughing at. She's pointing at the shape of the microphone just jutting into the image, and I'm like, oh shit, she's really the only one that caught that. Yeah, so I guess what I was saying was, right now, like, to build one of those right now, of course it's expensive if they're the first ones to do it, and I understand that they save money in a ton of other ways, but technology is going to get so advanced, you can literally start people can put this kind of shit in their garage and make something on video that, right now, when a fan makes a film, what do? They go out to the woods somewhere, right? It's always cheesy. Even some of the fan-made films, they go out and they have lightsaber duels out in the woods somewhere, and you're like, yeah. That's awesome. Imagine being able to scale that down, literally put it in a room in your house or a garage, and all of a sudden you're making something now that you can put yourself in an environment that's actually, not just Big Creek Park a block away. It's actually a realistic looking environment. So I think that stuff's pretty cool, and I think that's a game changer. But that's what Lucasfilm, I guess, has always done, right? Going back to the edit droid and everything else, they've always pushed the boundaries and changed the game. So.
Boy, and speaking about that, when they talked about Editroid and they talked about all the things that the producers, that they were most impressed by when they first started out at Lucasfilm, right? Once again, just reinforcing my disdain for Kathleen Kennedy. What does she bring up? Well, when I first started, I found out they had 142 patents. Who the fuck cares? You're making movies. But she doesn't care, because she doesn't care about making movies. She cares about making money. And ultimately, that's what Star Wars under her leadership is, the fact that she doesn't care about making movies and telling stories. And you contrast that, right? You contrast her getting so excited about 142 patents being held by Lucasfilm with Dave Filoni ending that first episode.
Oh my God.
The second episode.
The second episode.
Long disquisition about the conscious choices that George made, and that Duel of the Fates isn't about the fates of Anakin Skywalker's life will lead.
That totally blew me away.
I rejoice that it looks like Filoni is going to be taking lead on Star Wars moving forward.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's going to be given the title of president of Lucasfilm, but I do believe at some point in time they've got to concede the creative lead behind what they're doing.
He doesn't have to be president. I don't think he'd ever want to be president because it would take him. Off the set.
Yeah.
And he doesn't strike me as the guy who wants to do that.
No, not at all. But I can see them. Well, here's the other mystery, I guess, and that is just this story group, right? That's supposed to keep all the continuity. That's I think Pablo Hidalgo leads that, right? So I'm just wondering where their presence was during the sequels. How involved
they were, from what I understand, they were all over it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll shut up then.
Oh, well, here you go. From Wikipedia, the Lucasfilm Story Group began as an initiative from Kathleen Kennedy in 2012. That's good.
Yeah, it was an effort to wipe out all the legends and everything else that,
Yep. They're so let's get rid of George Lucas. Let's not have him be a creative force in this at all.
Yeah.
And let's bring in a bunch of people who are just big fans and made a couple of movies or a couple of games.
Right. And let's announce directors 6 years out and their projects. We already know that's like in the industry I'm in. If you win a design award, that's the kiss of death. If you're a director and Kathleen Kennedy hires you to do something in 4 years, chances are you're not going to do it. That things are going to take a wild turn. So I think this, and you're right. You guys are right. You brought up a great point. I wasn't thinking about that walking into the show tonight, but out of all the people at the round table, I wanted to hear from her the least on those segments that she was in there. I'm like, I don't really want to hear from you, and it has nothing to do with who she is. It's what she has. It's how effective she's been at Lucasfilm, which I don't think she has been. It's hard to imagine, Pete, that, and I never thought I would say this. And of course, mostly I'm saying this because I didn't want it to be bad. I didn't want to not enjoy it. But I don't know. This might be extreme. I don't know if they could have fucked it up anymore. Honestly, in the sequel trilogy, I don't know that they could have fucked it up more. Of course they could have, but.
Sure, they could have. They could have hired Rob Manfred to help out. That would have screwed it up.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, or other people that are in positions of power, they could have hired them too, and they could have screwed it up. But
they would have finished the movie, but then they just wouldn't have released it.
Interesting. Yeah, they could have done that, or Roger Goodell could have ran it too. That would have been even more fun. Maybe it could have been a joint instead of Favreau and Filoni. How about we just have Goodell and Manfred head up season 3 of The Mandalorian, and let's see how that goes.
The Lucasfilm Management Group: Kathleen Kennedy, Rob Manfred, and Roger Goodell. That just destroy Star Wars forever.
How do we take this franchise down like a lawn dart? Let's give it to these 3.
With your professional sports leagues, we have a whole new career path for you guys to consider now that you've both been retired from your commissionerships. Let's talk Hollywood.
Well, they could. Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be a series itself, like worst presidents, worst CEOs, worst commissioners. I mean, it'd just be a series. It would run quite long, maybe as long as The Simpsons. But it would definitely be headlined.
There would always be new content.
There will continually be content on that one. So, but I want to get into now just some of the rumors that we're hearing about The Mandalorian Season 2. And some of them I think are actually pretty cool, and we haven't been able to talk about it on here. I wanted to talk about a lot of this stuff last week, but baseball dominated the whole damn hour, and I didn't want to go any longer than that. I got fatigue. But we've heard the Rosario Dawson, that's been out there for months now, that she's going to be making an appearance in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And then likely there's a new series with her starring in it about her. So I don't know when that's planned on taking place, but what capacity does she show up again what's the timeline here? 4 or 5 years post Return of the Jedi, right? That's the Mandalorian time. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's right.
So she's going to show up then, and we remember at the end of Rebels, the last time we saw Ahsoka, the war had just ended, and we're probably within months after the war ended, and her and Sabine take off to go find Ezra, right? So you're talking probably within 3.5, maybe 4 or 5 years later, we're at this position in the Mandalorian. What are you guys guessing? Because this is the part of Star Wars or anything else that we like, that we get to think about and like wonder, I wonder why she's going to show up there and what's happened right in between last time we saw her and the time she's supposedly going to show up again in the Mandalorian season 2. Why do you guys think that is? Pete, I'm going to start with you.
I heard some interesting speculation a couple of weeks ago, and I think it'd be a very interesting possibility. We saw hints of it at the end of the Clone Wars, and I just wonder, what if Ahsoka has gone full Mando, right? Because she had already started to incorporate some of their pieces into her outfit in the Clone Wars, in that last arc of the Clone Wars. So you know what, and she said, all she had ever been raised as a Jedi was a warrior. So what if she embraces that? She embraces her upbringing, and she adopts the Mandalorian culture, and that's how she's reintroduced, is that she and Sabine, 2 Mandalorians, are out searching for Ezra. And that's how their paths cross with the armor and with the Mandalorian.
And I think that her character puts Mando in the direction to say, I know this creature. He is the same creature of one of my old masters. And maybe she knows something that she can point him in a direction.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and it makes you wonder too. As we went through Rebels, did Ahsoka have any knowledge yet that Yoda survived and was in isolation in Dagobah? I heard somebody pronounce it Dagobah, which I thought was interesting. Yeah.
Well, you remember in Rebels when she goes to the temple with Ezra and Kanan, she sees him.
That's true. Yeah.
So she knows that he's dead.
Alive.
Well, as a Force ghost.
He wasn't a Force ghost at that point. He was
in Rebels. Yeah.
No, he was alive because he was alive all the way through Return of the Jedi. I think he was communicating through Ezra.
Takes place, right?
Yeah, before.
Because it's pre.
Yeah. So I think what happened was.
Come on, nerd.
Yeah.
Speaking of nerd, we're going to get into Elliott's technical deficiencies here soon with his microphone. I was going to save that to the end. So yes, you're right, Elliott. He did communicate with Ezra, and you're right. You reminded me of that, and I totally forgot about it. Ahsoka gave him a nod, right? And she saw him, and he saw her. Somehow he was communicating when Ezra was able to go into the temples. That's actually when Ezra got his kyber crystal, was when he was having a Force conversation.
Well, there was 2 times. There was when he got the kyber crystal, and then there was the other episode where they were being chased by the Inquisitors, and the Inquisitors razed the temple and destroyed it.
I don't quite remember the detail behind that one, but I do remember the interaction between him and Ahsoka now, and he gave her a nod. So she's aware he's alive, probably doesn't know where he's at. Where I was going with this was, I think there's 2 possibilities, at least in my mind, I'm thinking of 2 possibilities why Ahsoka shows up in The Mandalorian. One could potentially be the Mandalorian sought somebody out that could help him. But the second one, I think, just feels more likely, and that is she seeks him out because he is a bounty hunter, because he can find people, and she seeks him out because she's still potentially at this point still hunting for Ezra, still trying to figure out where he's at and to bring him home. That could be at least in my mind why the 2 cross paths. I could be wrong. It could be completely different. I want to bounce to somebody else here. I know we're getting a little bit late in the show. Tim Morrison has also been cast in The Mandalorian season 2, and a lot of people keep saying this is Boba Fett. Boba Fett survived. Well, let me take a step back here real quick, guys. There was a series of books, 3 novels called Aftermath that take place right as Return of the Jedi ends, and it goes a few years out. Part of one of the interlude stories, which actually the Aftermath novels I didn't like that much, but some of the interlude stories I thought were pretty interesting. There is I can't remember, Cobb Vanth, I think was his name. He's a character on the planet of Tatooine. The Freedom Town is the town on Tatooine that he's a resident of, but he's also taken the role of kind of a sheriff, a peacekeeper. Now that the Empire's out of there, he's trying to keep the crime out of Freedom Town. I might have the name wrong, but somebody comes to him seeking out Jawas who supposedly have this Mandalorian. I don't know where they heard it from. I don't think it was ever stated, but they had a set of damaged Beskar armor that they recovered somewhere. And of course, we all are going to look at that and go, well, it's armor. The Sarlacc shed it out somehow, digested all the parts of Boba Fett, and armor survived because it's Beskar. Or he blew his way out, but the armor was so damaged he didn't want to use it anymore. Anyway, something went bad there, and this guy ended up acquiring armor. Still doesn't say whether it's Boba Fett's armor or not, but it's armor. I'm thinking about it could happen. This is how Tim Morrison, I believe, might show up in The Mandalorian. From an age perspective, is he too old to be Boba Fett at this point in time, or is he just the right age? And I can't determine that from the timeline. I've tried to kind of do the math in my head as I'm driving back and forth to the office, but that could be a fit. I think it's more likely.
The tough thing about it is going to be, and this is the rough thing about bringing Captain Rex back too, is that he's going to be old, right? Because we've been told that the
clones age twice as fast, right?
Age twice as fast, right? And Boba Fett is a clone. He's not a child. So he's going to be just as old as Rex. Well, not just as old, because he's a child when we first see him. But yeah, I don't know. You'd have to think that they're going to age him up, because we're talking about about 35, 40 years at this point, right? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I heard the guys on Rebel Force Radio were trying to break this down too, and I think Jimmy Mack kind of agreed with you, Pete, that isn't he going to be a little old there, like in his 80s, basically, by the time the Mandalorian?
I mean, he ultimately should look like Rex, right? He should be. Yeah. He should be the bearded white guy.
Well, in the room, I don't know if this is a fact or not, or if it's just Filoni having fun, but the guy with the white beard at the side of the bunker on Endor, when the Han tricks the guys into coming out, the biker scouts, and they run around the corner of the bunker, and there's that one guy in the white beard there holding the rifle. Somebody asked him, I think it was a convention. And
I think that's been retconned. I think that's been made canon, that is Rex.
That is Rex. Okay. So we see him there, and he's physically able, and he doesn't look terribly, terribly old. If they're saying that's Rex, cool. That looked a lot like Rex in Rebel series, right? When he had the big white beard, and I guess you didn't know if that guy in the bunker was bald or not because he had that helmet on. But he didn't look terribly old there. So if you go 4 more years out or 5 more years out, depending on when the season 2 Mandalorian actually takes place in the timeline, it's conceivable. But and I believe it's more likely that Tim Morrison coming back. I guess where I'm going with this is I don't know that they're going to reintroduce Boba Fett and say he survived and everything in the Mandalorian series, because Boba Fett is an icon of Star Wars. He's a pretty damn big deal, and I don't know that they would reintroduce him in this way in just a cameo bit on a live action series. I think they would make that. I just feel like they would want to put that on a little bit more grand scale. Whereas Rex was introduced in the Clone Wars. He showed up in Rebels. To me, it feels like a safer pick to keep that character alive, because we know he survived, that Tim Morrison's coming back as Rex, or if not Rex, another clone that survived. I think that to me feels more likely. What would be cool is if we see the Ahsoka character and Rex together in live action at the same point in time. But there's also a possibility that these two characters show up at different times or different episodes in The Mandalorian. So I think it's more likely, Pete, that he's a clone of some sort that survived, and I'm hoping it's Rex.
Would it be awesome if we've got a live action Bad Batch?
He still needs to be old.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Tim Morrison's he's not a spring chicken anymore. If
Right.
you think about it, and we're showing our age now, they were filming Attack of the Clones 20 years ago.
Right.
So, he was into his 40s at that point. He's in his 60s. Look, Harrison Ford came back as Han Solo in his 70s. This isn't out of the realm of possibility, but I do think it's likely that Tim Morrison takes on the character of a clone of some sort that survived the war. I think it's likely Rex, but it could be a different one. Could be Wolf. But I think that's how that's the capacity which he's gonna come back. And I believe that this Mandalorian armor that and I forgot the actor's name who's signed on for the Mandalorian season 2. He's a big time guy, and I can't remember his name. Guys, one of you guys can look that up.
Oh, the guy from Justified.
Deadwood.
Timothy Oliphant.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and so the rumor is he's going to be the one donning this armor. At least it's just fan speculation. So that would make all the sense in the world that he's playing the sheriff on this town in Tatooine.
But he won't be a Mandalorian. He'll just be wearing Mandalorian armor.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to hire Tim. You're not going to hire Tim Oliphant to hide him.
No.
Like, as they joked with the casting of Pablo Pascal.
Right. Which we learned that he's only in the
lots of research, and people decided they don't want to look at this guy anymore. That's not the case with Tim Oliphant. People like to look at him. You are not going to hide his face.
No, of course. But Pedro Pascal looked pretty good on. If you've watched Game of Thrones, he was kind of a playboy there in that series. But he's looking at when they finally removed the helmet from him and the blood on there. I'm like, that would be disappointing, right? If you that girl on that planet that wanted to take it off. I mean, what if she would have like put it right back down? Like, oh, never mind, and just put the helmet right back on. But yeah, it's also interesting. We got from the galleries that he's really only in that he's only in costume 50% of what we see on screen. It's a couple stunt doubles that are doing some of the heavy lifting for him on the action scene. So, but I think the rumors about the season 2 are actually very cool. I'm as excited as I was to hear that they might bring Ahsoka into live action. I was actually a lot more interested to see that Tim Morrison, who had been part of the saga, a key role, a key character in the saga, returning to make an appearance here. I think that to me was way more interesting.
I mean, maybe
that would be cool.
Plays a few.
Well, you got to think. I don't know. It's fun to think about this stuff, and that's why I don't like everything filled in Star Wars. I like leaving things open or just never touched on. Like, look, for me personally, I know Pete disagrees with me, but I actually didn't hate the Solo movie. I know that I might have come across on a podcast review of that where I hated it. I actually don't hate it. It's not one I want to go back and watch very often. But I don't
disagree with you. I enjoy Solo.
No, never mind. I didn't need the Han Solo backstory filled in, is my point. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. I like to let my imagination kind of imagine what his life was like before we saw him in A New Hope. I kind of feel the same way about a lot of these characters. Like, I don't need every detail filled in. I like to kind of wonder what Rex was doing the last time we saw him in Rebels to now. I don't really need to. And I think, though, and this is my mind, that part of his purpose for existing in that time was to recover other clones and save them, to heal them like he was healed. And I think that to me is like, I'd just like to leave it. I'm looking forward to seeing him again in Mandalorian season 2, but I'm just hoping that nothing comes out that tries to fill in the gap of time there from when we saw him to when we are supposed to see him again. I don't necessarily need to know every detail of what happened in between. That's my only fear about this Ahsoka series.
I know what you're talking about, Ron, and surprisingly, I agree with you. Right,
Mm-hmm.
One of the best examples of that is in Jedi when Lando refers to that maneuver at the Battle of Tanab. We never saw the Battle of Tanab. We don't know what happened at the Battle of Tanab, but we know that somewhere between Empire and Jedi, Lando was involved in the Battle of Tanab.
Yeah.
And he did something spectacular because they made him a general.
That's right.
But we still don't know what the hell it is, and frankly, we don't care. All we needed to know was that it happened.
Yeah, he did a
Right?
really cool maneuver.
We never saw Beggar's Canyon back home. We never saw Luke bullseye womp rats. It was enough that he told us that he could.
Yeah. Well, and I'll use another example, Pete. The Kessel Run.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. They didn't need to even cover that in Solo. They don't do it. Just leave that to us to imagine and to speculate on what the hell happened there. Because I'm just wondering, like, who gives a shit and who kept track? I did the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Like who in the galaxy? Why is that a famous thing? Like, who cares? You stole shit from a mine and you got out of there quick and you almost got sucked in by a black hole and some kind of space squid. Okay, I could have done without that. He did the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, which is a unit of distance and not time, but whatever. I mean, that was one of the funny things about Star Wars. I kind of wish out of all the things in Solo, God, it'd be kind of nice to leave that one alone because that was a snafu. And it was funny. I wish they would have left it at that. But anyway, there's another rumor. I read it off StarWarsNewsNet.com. It's the last thing we'll touch on, I think, and that is that they're looking to live cast potentially, and this is rumor, looking to live cast Admiral Thrawn, which
makes sense. If you're going to bring back Sabine and Ahsoka and their search for Ezra, you have to bring back Thrawn at some point. If you're going to find Ezra.
And then you need to go back and you need to tell some stories of Thrawn.
Yeah.
And who he is, because those Timothy Zahn books are just there for the picking.
But here's something that I'm actually excited about.
Where'd he go?
Uh-oh.
And he's gone. I'm glad he was excited.
Extended universe stuff.
Oh, there he is.
Well,
you disappeared on us for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. What I was going to say is, speaking about Timothy Zahn, one of the things that I've really appreciated, he has been very judicious, but he's brought back a lot of stuff that was considered expanded universe and that had been cut out of canon.
Yeah.
He brought back Thrawn. He's brought back things that were not considered. And I just think, is this not an opportunity in the near future where we get a Thrawn series and it picks up and they actually adapt the Zahn novels and all of that stuff that's been lost to the legends becomes canon again, and we get to explore Thrawn, and there's a whole new generation introduced to, and we get that overarching antagonist back in the background who's missing right now because the Emperor isn't there.
Yeah, another thing you mentioned, that's a really good thing to bring up, Pete, because there have been some follow-up novels that are official canon. Zahn has written both of them, and I've audio. They voice him. I don't know if it's the same actor. Interesting because it covers Thrawn's time of when he came from the outer regions, was basically a prisoner of the Empire, and then worked his way through the system to become a Grand Admiral under and he was looked after basically by the Emperor. The Emperor was trying to gain something from him, as Thrawn was trying to gain something from the Empire. It was a pretty interesting couple books that they came out with. So yeah, he's got a rich history, not just from the legends, but even from the new stuff. And now you throw in Rebels, it does. And you're right, it makes all the sense in the world. Now they're just casting it now, which means he's probably not a part of season 2 Mandalorian. It could be something else. And if they are genuinely talking about an Ahsoka series, that could be another candidate right there where if Ahsoka is eventually going to find Ezra, or she already has found Ezra, that's my suspicion is that's where those two might overlap.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be. It'd be great. All right, guys. So
do you name the series Ahsoka, or do you name it the Fulcrum?
Yeah, it feels to me though like the Fulcrum's time is gone because the rebellion's over, essentially. And she was, you know, she was the fulcrum at that point in time. I think if they named a series Ahsoka,